Macbeth, Act 1. In the first scene, the witches are introduced along with their intention to meet with Macbeth after a battle. The second scene details the results of that battle, with victory for Macbeth and Banquo against rebel forces. News of their triumph is given to a delighted King Duncan of Scotland. The following scene sees the returning Macbeth and Banquo each given a set of prophecies by the witches. Macbeth is Thane of Glamis, will become Thane of Cawdor, and then will be King of Scotland. Banquo, in contrast, will somehow manage to be both greater and lesser than Macbeth, more happy than him, but not as happy, whilst also fathering a line of kings without becoming one himself. At the end of this pivotal third scene, an astonished Macbeth and Banquo are informed that as a reward for his victory, Duncan has made Macbeth Thane of Cawdor. In the fourth scene, Duncan finally meets Macbeth and Banquo in person, lavishing further praise and telling Macbeth that he will hold a great feast of celebration at Macbeth's castle. Duncan also announces that his heir will be his eldest son, Malcolm. The action then shifts to Macbeth's castle in scene 5, where Macbeth's wife, Lady Macbeth, is reading a letter from her husband detailing what has happened so far. She decides there and then that Duncan must die, and tells an uncertain Macbeth of this when he returns. Scene 6, a short one, where the unsuspecting Duncan arrives at Macbeth's castle to be cordially greeted by Lady Macbeth. In the final scene, Macbeth broods over what to do, and decides not to carry out the plot to murder Duncan, only to be swiftly persuaded by Lady Macbeth to change his mind. The scene and first act ends with a Macbeth ready to murder. Across the 7 scenes, most of the major characters are introduced. Macbeth, Lady Macbeth, Banquo, and the witches. We also meet Duncan and, briefly, Malcolm. Moreover, the themes of power, the supernatural, appearance and reality, and ambition are all firmly established through the appearance of the witches. Macbeth's conflicting desires, Lady Macbeth's naked political ambition, and characters hiding their true feelings from one another. With just the stage direction and a dozen or so lines, Shakespeare is able brilliantly to indicate the kind of play the audience is about to experience from the very first scene. The use of thunder and lightning effect conveys a dark and disturbing mood, whilst the witches' brief exchanges underscore that they are supernatural agents of evil, able to manipulate the weather, predict the future, and even fly. They also speak in riddles, establishing that in this play nothing is what it seems. This threat to the natural order seems to be averted with the news of Macbeth and Banquo's stunning victories against the rebel armies, but once the witches return to the stage, the renewed order is challenged and crumbles as Macbeth is lured into the witches' trap of double talk. He does try to resist, but a combination of his wife's persuasive abilities and his own personal flaws centered on his ambition undoes him and will lead to tragedy. The act ends as it started, on a dark and sinister note with a plot to kill a king. In between the opening and closing scenes, the audience gets an insight into the character of Macbeth, which is often contradictory. He is a war hero, loyal to Duncan, and close to his wife, yet he is also very tempted by the witches, and clearly harbours an ambition to become king. By the end of the act, this ambition has defeated his better nature, and he is resolved to murder the man he had just fought so hard to support. In contrast, his wife, Lady Macbeth, whilst sharing a similar ambition, is much more single-minded and clear-headed about what needs to be done to achieve her desires. Their dynamic as a couple is close to one of equality, an unusual feature of marriages in Shakespeare's day, when husbands were the head of the household and women were expected to follow their lead in all matters. But it is a relationship which is about to undergo a great strain and transformation over the next 4 acts.